Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is time for art, and I hope you guys are ready. Today, we have a really fun day planned. Just want to say shout out to everybody who has joined our community of artists that is just growing by leaps and bounds, and everybody who's posting and everything. We love you guys so much. Thank you for taking the time for art. Thank you for making time for art and for posting what you guys are doing. It's really helping our community grow. Don't forget, as far as growing our community, we do it say this every meeting. We want to grow as big as we can so we can share our work with everybody. So like, tag, post, comment, interact with us online as much as you can. I'll post all of the links as usual right into our comment section here so you guys will know exactly where to find us all. And don't forget, TikTok is a really fun place to find us. There's really cool videos on there, some fun stuff that I believe Melissa and Allison are working on. And so don't forget to check us out there. And if you guys have people that you want to recommend to Time for Art, they can get a 20% discount by using our Friends and Family 20 code, which again will be right there in the comments. Today is Monday, so you guys all know what that means. It is going to be an art journal day. And today we're going to be learning about, if you look at it's not on the calendar, but today is an abstract and stylistic art day. And Allison was just showing me some of the stuff that we're going to learn today. It's super cool. Lots of cool textures and techniques that you guys we're all going to learn and take forward through our art journey. We have a big announcement about the template challenge that ended on Friday. You guys all did a very, very, very good job, and so there's a lot of honorable mentions. But let's cut. Allison, do you have?
I am. I'm going to put it up right now.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3. The winner is Chelsea Nicholson with her painting of the little chicks on the shore. Let's see.
Can everybody see it?
Everyone can see it. Yes, I see it. Yes, it's
excellent,
there.
Excellent, excellent.
Allison, what you were mentioning some things about it, and just that before we went live, what were you saying about it?
Okay, so there are so many things I love about this. One, let's just start with the texture in the sky and the water. You can really see some of the brushstrokes here that are more dry, and some of the looser, wetter ones. We're seeing some of the paper come through here. So a lot of time and attention and detail on these two textures. They're also very different. There's a lot of different colors in the water versus the sky. And the water is a reflection of the sky, so they're very symbiotic, and that's very much the case here. Background to foreground. Then we have these really lovely playful ducks back here that appear to be free-handed, because I certainly didn't send you a template like this. And this one's like diving down, and this one's like, what you doing? And if you look, there's some really great gesture marks around here with the water splashing up and showing some movement, and we have reflections in the water, and maybe we're seeing through the water a little bit to like where the duck's neck is going and looking around. And so really, really lovely attention to detail. And then on shore in the foreground, we have these fabulous babies. And they're really great, and they have a lot of detail. They're in focus. They're bigger because they're closer than, I'm going to go ahead and say, the mature ducks in the back are. And there's all this really lovely greenery and foliage on what might be the shore, maybe an island, I don't know, but we absolutely love this one. So thank you so much to Chelsea and everyone who submitted. And if you could get it to Hershey, we just need to know where to send your prize to. So whatever email you'd like that sent to, if you could like message Time for Art subscriptions or the subscriber group, whatever's more comfortable, as long as you get us that email, we can get you your prize. So thank you.
Thank you, Allison, for showing us that. And
very much. And I'm going to go back to...
I also want to give an honorable mention out to Melinda P. She submitted, I think, 4 different template challenges.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Then there was Melinda C., who worked with elephants. I thought that was a really cool one. And then also a special shout out to Ruth C., who worked with the frog. I thought she did a great job there. So thank you guys. Great job, great job, great job.
And I think you meant Michelle P.
What's that?
Michelle P. Not Melinda.
Michelle P. Sorry, did I say
Michelle
Melinda
P.
again? Okay.
Yes.
Michelle P. Sorry, Michelle. Sorry about that.
No, I knew who you were talking about, but then I had to, yeah, we just want to get it right. So
yeah, absolutely. If she's watching, sorry about that. And I also wanted to take a special shout out to everyone who uploaded their work from Wednesday. The dogwood paintings were insanely good. Great job, guys. That was remarkable. Before we get started, before we introduce Allison, who you've heard just now, before we bring her on, I just want to say, you guys, we've had a couple comments come in. People are like, oh, they're sorry I didn't finish the Mondays project before I move on to Wednesdays, and you're feeling a little bit maybe you're behind on schedule, whatnot. And like, we just want to say to you guys, you cannot be behind in time for art. This is you're never behind, and we have a calendar so you guys can look ahead and see what we're going to do. So if you want to plan what nights you're able to make it or what you're not, you'll know what we're going to be doing next. And you don't need to finish one night before you start the next. Every single one of these different lessons, there's going to be 8 activities in a month. Every one of them is self-contained so that you don't have to finish it in order to start the next. And that, we want you guys to feel free to start a project and then finish it later as your schedules allow. And, with our live streams, if there's ever anything any instruction or demonstration that you see you want, or that Allison does that you want more of, these videos are available on YouTube and Facebook. As soon as we're done, they instantly get posted up to both of those platforms. And so just, don't want you guys to feel stressed about something or whatnot. So please, please, please don't feel that stress at all. This is supposed to be fun. We just want to make art with you guys and do it, in a very stress-free environment. So don't worry about that. Let's bring Allison on camera. Allison,
hello.
Nice to see you. How are you?
Fantastic. How are you, Hershey?
I am also fantastic. The
Awesome.
Weather here in Tucson is getting a little cloudy and rainy, and so we're getting some of that rare rain, and I'm excited about it.
You probably need it. The other shout out I wanted to say was back to Chelsea found some really awesome frames that we were like, where did you find those? Because we've been looking for frames. And so that's really great that you're taking care of your work and you're displaying your work and that you shared the link with everybody. And we are very grateful that you shared that with us.
Yes.
So
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. And we are going to talk about abstract art and kind of figure it out. And Hershey and I were discussing this before we got on. Here's the tricky thing about abstract art. Anything goes. So when anything goes, what makes some work stronger than others? When do you know when to quit? How does that go? And I really love abstract art. A lot of times it's the art I buy from other people because it's not the kind of art that I'm necessarily trained to make. But we're going to figure some of that out tonight. So I've got a few images that we're going to look at and we're going to kind of sort of learn the trick from, and then we're going to give it a try. But in the meantime, if you have one of your Time for Art subscription boxes, grab it. All right. And if you go under where we stamp it and you lift it up, we'll give everybody a chance to find their box if they don't have it. And you sort of undo this box side. All the boxes are the same, so any month's work. And you see this tab right here, or this tab right here. We're gonna rip that off and use it as a painting tool.
We're gonna paint with this part?
We're gonna paint with this guy right here.
That is cool.
And it's really great because there's a big area on this side and a smaller area on this side. And there's all kinds of things we can do with this. So this tab right here, there's 4 of them. So if you wreck one of them, you've got 3 more on any of your boxes. And we're gonna paint with it.
I love it.
So I've got I've done it twice. So here's this one. This one's marked U-line. That's where we get our boxes. And this one's not, but they're the same. And we'll give everybody a chance to get started. Do we have some momentum? on our chats?
Yeah, we do. That what you can't see, Allison, is that everybody is really giving Chelsea some love, and Chelsea's talking about her inspiration. She said that her inspiration was the book Ping the Duck. It was a favorite from her childhood, and she likes to tell herself that story as she paints. So she's
Ping the Duck.
happy.
I know the story of Ping.
You do?
My dad read me the story of Ping. Yes, and he like Ping gets left behind. I think maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
When it gets on again, and like somebody like, yeah, it's a really good one. It's
awesome.
So as everybody is coming up with their painting tools, I'm going to pull out some abstracts that I found to try and get the glare out that I really like. So here's one of them.
Real quick, if anybody out there has ever worked in the abstract field, like please let me know in the comments, because I'd love to. Allison will tell you, I have so many questions, like how do you know you're done if you're not working off a reference page, and like what makes abstract art abstract, and is it just painting on it, so let me know.
So these first ones that we're going to talk about are just very much free association. They're about color and texture and shape, and there's not really anything representational in them. So representational is just something you can identify, right? It's representing something. So sometimes realistic art it's debatable what some might call realistic and what others might call realistic, but representational is a little bit more easy to define because it represents something else. So if it looks like an apple and that was the artist's intent, then it's representing an apple. And then you can talk about from that point on how realistic that apple might be, but it's definitely representational. And so that's kind of what we're going for here. And so this one I really like because there's a lot of really thoughtful neutrals in it. We have some cool sort of gray blue neutrals. We have this kind of yellow neutral that works into this white. We have kind of some of the in-betweens where this kind of yellow, peachy, orangey color kind of comes in and out here. And then we have some really, really strong kind of raspberry magenta warm colors. And then a lot of these I found kind of finish it off with like a black where it's the least, it's on the frontmost layer. So it's the last thing some of these artists did. And they use it sparingly, but it really kind of hits some emphasis. So this one, I'd say it's all warm colors, except maybe for this kind of cool blue neutral, and which is barely in there. And does anyone know about rule of thirds? Sometimes it's in photography. So rule of thirds is if you are to make a tic-tac-toe board over your composition, the focal point or a point of interest is on one of the crosshairs of the tic-tac-toe board. And the tic-tac-toe board can be elongated. It can be, in this instance, we're talking about a square, so it's easier, but this definitely fulfills the rule of thirds because this is definitely a focal point or a place of interest right here. It's hitting on this sort of upper left-hand crosshair right here. So that's one of them we're going to take a look at. The next one is this one. And I hope I have this the right way. I think I do. It might be like this. I actually think it's situated like this. So we'll look at it the right way. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
And so this one, kind of same thing. If we were going to make some crosshairs here, this definitely hits sort of one of the crosshairs or overlaps one of them. And this one, what I think is super interesting about this is it's got a cool neutral, this gray. It's got a warm neutral, this sand color. And then again, kind of finishes it off with this little bit of black, which is kind of interesting. And this one's also very kind of segmented where there's a shape of white, a shape of the sand color. So there's actually, if you kind of squint, some geometry to these sort of segmented areas where if we go back to here, less so. This is kind of just more free flow across the composition. So
yeah,
that's this one. This one definitely, I believe, goes more like this. And this one definitely is kind of the same thing. There's some geometry to this region. These are very definitive shapes. And then the black sort of does something across one of the crosshairs, just like this. And there's a line quality to this where there's kind of a line that kind of takes you around the whole thing. I'd say almost all warm colors. Yes.
Something I'm seeing is that I'm not seeing in this one or the last one. The first one, yes, but I don't see much of a brush stroke anywhere.
I'd say there's some brush strokes that are right here. Do you see some of these? But you're right. This is it's more of a contrast of flat planes than it is really impasto brush strokes. Impasto is kind of like it's frosted.
Yeah.
Shaping up. So I think the takeaway that before we get into that one, the takeaway from definitely these two is that these are compositions and the way they work, and that's kind of what we're going to play with, are these sort of regions of color that overlap, but they definitely have kind of a shape quality to them. And then there's kind of a dark sort of overtone, like finishing point that brings them all together. In this instance, it's kind of this serpentine line. In this instance, it's these two marks, but they kind of overlaps. I'm getting ahead of myself. They kind of
are these famous works of art?
What's that? No, these are ones I found on Pinterest. Okay. We're taking a look. We might do that someday. We're just taking a look at abstract art. I like that I'm figuring out why it works. Do we have any comments in this space about what people think might work, what doesn't?
No, you know what? Actually, the chat is abuzz with a correction to your story about your aunt reading your
King, am I totally off?
You know, your mother, Julie Crary out there wanted to make sure that everyone knew that that was actually her book that she read to you.
Lies. Not even one time. Ask Kevin Crary, the Time for Art subscriber groupie, because he's on all the time. Ask him who read the story of Ping. And
hilarious.
And right, King was like slapped on like the booty, like if you're the last one, and so he didn't want that, so he stayed on the island, something like that. Anyway, that is my recollection of the story of Ping. So okay, so let's try some of these. Let's move this guy out, and I like this one. Actually, let's go with this one, where we have a neutral, kind of a warmer version of a color, which is this red orange, a less warm version. Yellow is still a warm color, but it's not quite as warm as this red one. Black and white. And we won't do black. We'll do we'll make a black. Okay.
Okay.
So let's try this.
Do you think that they let all these colors dry and then it's more of like they put a layer down and then leave it and then put a layer down and then leave it?
That may be the case. Let's try it that way. Let's try it not. So I'm gonna get out some white. And the first thing I'm gonna kind of do is, and we're certainly not trying to copy this, we're trying to copy the success of it. Sort of what makes this composition work. And so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix a neutral. So I'm gonna put some vermilion in the middle, and I'm gonna put some deep blue in the middle. And this will give us kind of our black. I got a little bit of water on my brush. So for our intents and purposes, I'm a little too blue.
And what were those colors? I'm sorry.
Vermilion and deep blue, and I'm a little too blue. So I'm going to add a little bit more vermilion. That's pretty good. That's a pretty nice black.
That is pretty close, huh?
Yeah. And so I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it over here and I'm going to add a substantial amount of white to that. And that's going to kind of be our base neutral.
Okie dokie.
And because we have this almond colored paper, I'm going to kind of add a little bit of water to that just to loosen it up a little more so it moves, because we're kind of interested in the flow on a composition like this. We're going to get out our box application tool, spatula. And I'm going to get some of this paint on my box tool. And I am going to start applying this with some texture. And if you look, when you overlap it, you get some striping. And this is using the smaller side. Now I'm going to try the larger side right here. Bigger strokes. And kind of build it up in some regions. But we already have, just with the color of our paper and this beautiful gray that we mixed, I think a very interesting painting.
Yeah, agreed.
And so the next thing we're going to make is we're kind of going with this one as our inspiration. I am going to get out our medium yellow.
You know, I think that's what I was noticing when I was saying that I didn't see brush strokes, is that that with these abstract paintings, sometimes it looks like they use different tools than brushes to apply the.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that might be the case in this instance. I don't know the artist or how it goes. And I'm actually going to keep a little bit of the gray that I had on here because I kind of want to dirty up my yellow in this instance. And I'm going to put a little bit of white in it. And I'm going to kind of get this guy going. And again, we're sort of looking to kind of make a shape, but not a geometric one. We're looking for kind of a shape with ratty edges. And so get this guy going over here. And Hershey's right. Had we let this dry, we'd have a different outcome than what we're doing right now. But I'm kind of liking it wet and seeing what kind of picks up from the initial part and what doesn't. So that's kind of my first shape there. And then I think I'm going to kind of also, it's not the case in kind of our reference, but I'm also going to kind of put some of the same yellow over here. And then if you go on just the edge with this tool we made, you can get some of these kind of lines. You see how I'm doing that?
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of play with some of that. What would it look like if I added more white to this? Good question. So I've got some of my yellow, but I've added some white to it. That's kind of fun. I like how that looks. This is kind of a shape within a shape right here. Even a little more white. Let's kind of do some of that up there. All right. So far, still super interesting, right?
Yes.
Let's add some of our vermilion to this yellow right here. Let's mix this guy up. And now we've got this kind of fabulous red-orange color. And this is going to be kind of a whole nother shape. And I'm going to have this going this way. I'm going to have it in the direction of my stroke. I have it kind of come down this way. I have some white on my sort of spatula tool, just like that. I'm going to have this kind of also cross into here. Again, all of this is experimental. We have a plan that it's going to be these sort of shapes that we make out of different colors with some overlap. I'm going to build up this edge a little bit more with some concentration. And getting in and getting out is kind of a big part of this. Like, I like how that paint's setting up right there. So I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to extend this kind of in this direction over here. Just like that. And then this painting has some kind of pure white that sort of sits in the middle here. So Another technique you can kind of embrace is what happens if you just drop some of your white right on your canvas.
Right on the canvas. This is loco.
Yeah. So I've got my tool out. I'm actually going to use the other side of it. And I'm just going to kind of play with some of that. Just like this. I like how that looks. And then with a brush, because I want to be a little bit more careful with this kind of black layer, I'm going to really dry off my brush. Go in with this black we kind of mixed the whole thing sort of the foundation of. And I'm going to paint in this black layer in these shapes. And this is kind of that line that we were talking about. So yeah. What is this sort of serpentine line? That's kind of the last layer. That ties it kind of all together. And there's my kind of first, not belabor it too much longer.
With all your work that I see, I'm just like, wow, yours looks like art. I'm looking at mine, it looks like a mess.
Okay, but your mess is how you got started. You can kind of go back and be like, okay, I'm gonna let my mess dry. What do I want to add? Do I want to rip up my mess and add it to something else? The only thing I want to add is that to this one is there's some like smaller strokes that are kind of happening in here that I think are kind of interesting. And we'll throw those in place. Kind of at focal point.
Does anybody home have a mess?
One, something tells me Hershey's being a little bit hard on himself. And two, what we're trying to do is say, okay, we have an appreciation for abstract art. Part of it is kind of giving it to God and seeing what comes of it.
Yeah.
The other part of it is to sort of see kind of how some compositions are very successful and learning from those and kind of playing in the same space. So I'm pleased with this one. I'm going to go ahead and wash my brush. I think our tool worked out really well.
I do too. I love that.
I'm going to go ahead and gently rip this out. Just so we can move on. Put this guy over here for.
Lori goes, she writes, I always have a mess. Follow your intuition, it seems. Thank you, Lori, for those words. Thank you.
At all. Lori's work is super great and we love it and not a mess. So, all right, I'm going to put our little tool aside for just a moment and we are going to get out this template of these kind of tulips or line drawings going on right here. And this is more we talked about. So this is definitely an abstract, totally non-representational, shapes, color, texture, all of those things. Now we're going to go into something a little bit more stylized. So what's stylized? Usually you're starting with something more representational, like these are tulips. And just putting them as a line drawing, one could argue is stylized because the tulips in life don't look like this. They aren't outlines with nothing in the middle. So just doing sort of a line drawing of them is an example of stylized. We're going to go a step further and super stylize our stuff to the point of abstraction. But that's kind of the task at hand. putting that guy aside, full of paint, could definitely wreck anything in this room right now. All right. So I chose this, and I want to get out my examples again. This is a painting right here that I'm going to go ahead and say is not representational, but might have started with something in nature.
Okay.
My guess doesn't have to be anyone else's, but might have started with something in nature. And so I took a look at our templates and I said, okay, if we're going to do something kind of like this, where did that painting maybe start? And so what I'd like everybody to do, if they still have this, if they don't, just follow along. You don't need this, but I want to sort of kind of put a box, almost like a viewfinder, around a portion of this illustration. And we're going to zoom in and make it sort of not recognizable and distort it a little bit. And we're going to build a composition like this off of this line drawing.
Allison, that's exciting. I cannot wait.
I mean, this is how I work. Again, some abstract artists, I'm sure it's more innate or it's more, I love abstraction. I love it so much. I've got a geometric one I'm going to show on Wednesday that's over my couch that I made. But in this case, when I figure out how I want to work, I look to see how other pieces are successful and sort of learn from that sort of position. And so I'm going to put this guy aside and let's dig in here. Let's actually move. Let's move this very, very wet painting. And I'm thinking I like it in here. Do I like it this way? Yeah, I feel like in here. I'm going to put a box around here. Okay, so we're looking at sort of
the part in the middle there.
This region, yeah. And so I'm going to make myself another box on here. And again, accuracy is not the goal, abstraction is. So the first thing I see on here are these kind of through lines that take you across this box. And I think that'll be really effective. And again, I'm not necessarily looking for them to look the same. So I'm going to kind of put some of these through lines. This one goes in the opposite direction. Through here. There's one that comes up this way. So even that is kind of an interesting abstract composition. If we just did this, it's looking cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I like that we see kind of the back sides. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and rip this for the sake of our demonstration here. Just like this. Okay. So there's some shapes kind of going on over here. And I don't think I want all the lines in them. I think I just like this kind of shape that's kind of going to weight this down like this. And then over here, I think it might be interesting if some of these kind of petals that we're playing with came in at different levels. So I'm going to kind of have one do this. I'm going to have one go lower. I'm going to have one go this way. And then there's kind of this one in back. So I think that's kind of interesting. If we were talking about rule of thirds, I think this is definitely going to be a focal point for us. And if we bring this back, that's got a glare. is how I want it. We kind of have complements going on here. So we have this kind of orangey, sort of marigold color, and then we have a blue color and kind of the different tints and analogous ones of those. So this gets kind of purpley over here. So it goes kind of purple and yellow, blue and orange, and the lighter and darker versions of those, and a neutral gray. So I'm going to do this one with a brush.
Okay.
And I don't want to use blue and orange because we kind of just did that. I want to do red and green. So we're going to mix up a quick green here. We got our medium yellow. Just like that. I'm going to add some cerulean to that. Let's mix this up. So it's going to be a really vibrant Kelly green. And then I think I'm going to reach for rose madder. And I think that's going to kind of be our reds, but it's going to be kind of a pinky red. And then if we combine these, definitely going to need more green.
Are you getting a brown with your green and red?
With this one, yes. So we're going to keep playing with it. So it's a little bit more green here. And actually, because it's a very yellow green, I'm going to put in a drop of our deep blue. And let's see what this does for our neutral. There we go. Now we've got this kind of purpley.
Yeah.
Kind of eggplant. There we go. That's what I was going for. All right, so we're going to keep that. I'm going to put some white over here. And I'm going to mix some of our green with this white. And I'm going to take a little bit of our red. And I'm okay with that having a little bit of our sort of neutral. And I'm going to add a drop of white.
You're adding now white to the red?
To the red. So those are the colors we're going to work with. We have our red and green. We have our tints of this kind of pinky tone we've made. And our lighter green. And then I'm going to take some of this neutral that we mixed over here, and I'm going to add some white to that. And again, you don't have to go with the exact colors I'm going with, but I am showing you just kind of how I'm putting this together. And let's mix this.
For me anyways, I don't know you guys at home, I'm keeping up with Allison when she color mixes is I like to do that because I like to make sure I get the hues right, I guess.
Not a bad way to go. Yeah, hue means color. You use that exactly right.
Okay, good.
Okay, So I am going to go in and I am going to kind of work this kind of whitish gray color kind of into my background as a neutral. And there is no background and foreground, but if there were, I'm kind of coming around this way. And I chose to do some really abstract compositions this month because we have sort of all of the colors.
Yeah, good point.
We have all of the primary colors. And I'm just going to take some white and kind of layer that in here. And that's going to kind of, I'm going to take some of the original dark and kind of fold that into what we're doing. And that's kind of our foundation. Then I'm going to move on to our next lighter colors, and that's this green and our light kind of pinky red. And I am just going to kind of choose some of these forms and start kind of working from my light colors to my more richly saturated colors. So here's this one right here. This is kind of coming around here. This is coming around this way. This guy kind of begins and ends right there. I do the same thing with our kind of pinky tones. I think I'm just going to kind of paint these in just like this. The colors are really harmonious because we've hinged the whole thing on complementary colors. And the neutrals they create. And this doesn't necessarily look like tulips or a flower, but it has some of the same elements compositionally. And that's why we started.
This is really neat.
And so right now I've got the whole thing kind of filled in with my tints. And I am going to, with the top of my big brush, just like this, go into my rose madder. And I'm going to kind of outline these forms. And I'm choosing this brush and not a smaller one because it gets kind of calligraphic when you pull it and change it like this. And sometimes I want the shapes I made in the beginning to kind of overlap. Sometimes I don't want them to. I always get more paint if I like what it's doing. I'm going to do the same thing with my green. I'm really trying to wash these out in between because I want my colors to kind of stay the same. Like we're not blending them, really. I don't want my red to blend into my green. I'm going to come in around like this. This way. And then kind of in the spirit of the dark color, kind of ties it all together. I'm going to go in here on the top layer and kind of decide what's the most interesting part, which I think is this part. And I'm going to kind of define it. With some of the smaller lines. We really did get a really nice, really gray neutral here. We're just going to kind of build up some visual texture with some lines here. And so we have final paintings coming up.
Yes.
And if you'd like to kind of use some of these sort of abstract techniques as a foundation for or a direction you want to take your final painting, I would be really excited to see that.
I think I'm definitely gonna do an abstract art painting for Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be fantastic.
I have to get more comfortable with this.
Well, and it's like, you know, we're not spending too much time on any of these, so you can kind of try a few and then decide which ones. What if I filled this in? Yeah, I like that. All right, so I'm looking at this. What do I want to be more defined? And I think kind of as some of this dries, I want some of these strokes to be a little bit more opaque. So I'm coming back in here. And these are some really long lines, so I might put some shorter lines, maybe over here. Like that. Maybe some more over here. And then back to our kind of light tones. Any place I really want to just kind of hit kind of a lighter tone. And I'm going to try it right here. Right here. All right, I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to walk away from it. If we want to, sometimes it gets very interesting to kind of define our borders with an abstract painting. So
Yeah.
I'm going to make some kind of border edges just so we can take a look at it. We kind of took it all the way off the page. So this kind of begins and ends here. I would love to see your abstract compositions. So whatever you've got.
Okay, I'm gonna make a border
If it's
first.
a self-defined mess or not, which I doubt it is, Hershey Patty.
I'm gonna make a border first. That way.
I'm just kind of establishing my border lines here.
All right, well, here you go, Al. Everybody, this is what I came up with.
Isn't that beautiful?
I actually kind of like it.
I do too. And if you do 10 or 12 of these, you might arrive on one that you want to make into a bigger painting. And that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah. I love the idea of finding a little square in something that you, in a larger photo or larger picture, and then painting just your interpretation of that little zoomed in area.
Yeah. So doesn't it really help sometimes to define your borders?
For sure.
It's what I did right here. And what I take from this is I want some warm color over here. So I'm going to have something kind of do that in this corner. I wanted to balance that out. And I think that helped a lot.
Adding the frame kind of helped you do that rule of 3.
Yeah. And so I'm looking at this, and maybe for my final painting, I might do a pattern underneath it. And let's not forget, our final paintings are going to be the diptychs. So
that's right.
Diptych. So a diptych is, forgot we had these shrink wraps together. 2 paintings, 1 composition. So we gave you these 2. So you can go this way with it. You can go this way with it. You can go this way with it. But you carry the composition across the 2.
Yes.
And it's a really cool thing to do with surface design, which is if you want to carry the pattern over it, if that's what you're interested in. If you want to do a landscape or baby animals or something like that over it, awesome too for spring. But I think it's a very, very interesting way to work, and I'm excited to do it this month.
I think so too. I'm really excited to do that one.
So there's the diptych. Here are my 2 abstract compositions for this week. So when they dry, I'll post them because they might dry a little differently from.
Yeah. Well, I actually really like mine now.
And so if you find one you really like, it'd be interesting, Hershey, to like let it dry, save it, and then let that be your template for the next painting you do, be it your final painting for the month or not. Just you've worked some things out compositionally there. Play with it again.
I love that idea.
See what you get.
The botanical, this right here, we just did. I think that like the first thing I thought of when I saw it was like, I'm gonna do this again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this again. Yeah.
And I don't think this looks a whole lot like what we started with at all, actually. No. I think we did some really significant abstraction, and it's really, really great because of it. Here's what we started with.
Lori is commenting. She says it looks like that your abstract is a bird in the reeds.
I love it.
Yeah.
And maybe it is. And wouldn't it be cool if I added a bird?
Yeah.
No reason you can't have a bird flying around there. So we are just interested at Time for Art in making art a lot of different ways and finding what sort of resonates with you. And it might be abstracts, and you might take elements of this and do it in all of your paintings, right? It may be like abstract week, not my favorite. I'll catch you Monday. I'll catch you Wednesday. Works that way too. But we're just going to keep doing it and trying and experimenting and learning and sharing with each other. And I don't know. I enjoyed doing something a little different.
Same. And what a cool idea too, because I always thought to myself, like, where do you even start with an abstract painting? Let alone where do you end? Because that was always, crazy for me too. But zooming in on one little portion, like I'm looking at our first abstract we did that was just like literally just nothing, whatever. And like I am looking at it thinking to myself, what could this be a zoomed in photo of?
Or is there a pocket of this you really like?
Yeah.
So we did this. Maybe I find like this region of the painting more interesting than the whole thing. That's kind of cool too. Same thing here. What if there's a certain portion of this I find more interesting? Could be cool as well.
You know, Julie actually wrote in the comment section, she said that she does most of her paintings twice. And I think that's awesome, Julie. That is really awesome. And, you know, Julie, I'd actually be curious to know, are your second versions, like, are you always like, wow, thank God I did a second version. I love it so much more. Or what do you find in your second versions? That's really cool.
I can tell you, I've seen some of her second versions and they are similar and a lot of times more proficient, but I think it's just, she likes to approach it with the knowledge that she learned on the first one.
Nice.
That's at least what I take from some of the really beautiful paintings she's done a second time.
Yeah, right. Man, awesome. Great lesson today, Al.
So yeah, so I hope everybody enjoyed doing something that's kind of abstract for abstract's sake, and then taking something more representational and stylizing it to an abstraction. And we'll do this again. And we have final paintings coming up. It's on your diptychs. Thank you. And congratulations to Chelsea.
Yep. And real quick, you guys remember on Wednesday when we meet up for final paintings, you're going to want those two little guys, the double ones to do the diptychs. So we're not going to use the big, there we go. Yeah.
I believe it's spelled DYPTICH or TYCH, diptych.
Well, I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
Always different. Always something different going on here.
Yeah, congratulations, Chelsea. Thank you, Allison. And we'll catch you guys all on Wednesday. Same time, same place. Same time for art. Wednesday, we'll do our final paintings of March. And we'll talk a little bit about what's coming up in April. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, guys.